Today, we're going to talk about the case of Mary Reeser, and I will say that even though this has a scientific explanation backed by an FBI investigation, this is still a very strange case. So, around 5 a.m. on July 2nd, 1951, this woman named Pansy Carpenter woke up to what sounded like a door shutting. Now, Pansy was a landlord of an apartment complex. She wanted to see what was going on, so she stepped outside, didn't see anything unusual, but caught a faint whiff of smoke. She figured it was probably coming from the electric pump in her garage, so she shut it off and then went back to bed. About an hour later, she stepped outside again to grab the morning paper, and that's when she noticed that something wasn't quite right. One of her tenants, 67-year-old Mary Reeser, was always up before 6 a.m. moving around her apartment doing chores while her radio was playing, but this morning Pansy didn't hear a radio and it felt strange, but it wasn't yet alarming. Around 8 a.m. a Western Union delivery boy showed up with a telegram from Mary, so Pansy grabbed it along with the newspaper and headed over to Mary's apartment to drop them off, but the second her hand touched the doorknob, she realized that it was hot, which is not a good sign. So she called out to a couple of painters who were working across the street and they came over running, and the first painter walked up, peeked through Mary's screen door, didn't see anything unusual, the bed was empty, but there was a little bit of smoke, so he told Pansy to call the fire department, which she did, and she also called Mary's son, Dr. Richard Reeser Jr. While Pansy was making those calls, the second painter actually stepped inside the apartment and was hit with this thick, heavy smoke. There wasn't a fire burning anymore at this point, just a pile of smoking ash in one spot, but the rest of the apartment looked almost completely untouched, like no fire damage. Now, just as that painter was about to walk out of the apartment and leave, he finally saw what was left of Mary. Her body had been almost completely reduced to ash. The only part still intact was her left foot, still inside her black satin slipper. When firefighters arrived on scene, they witnessed the same thing: heavy smoke, pile of ash, and Mary's left foot completely untouched laying beside the pile of ash. Inside that pile of ash, investigators found a piece of Mary's spine, part of her skull which had actually shrunk, and the metal coils from the chair she'd been sitting in. There was this little ring of smoke damage around the top of the room, and anything above it, like the electrical outlets, had melted, but strangely, anything below that ring was completely fine. Curtains and doors were darkened at the top but didn't burn. The bathroom was full of smoke, but two plastic shower caps inside were untouched. Mary's bed sheets were still white. The only things that appeared to be damaged were the chair Mary had likely been sitting in, a small wooden end table, and a floor lamp that had burned, though strangely the light bulb still worked and the rubber switch was completely intact. But I think the strangest finding of all had to be a greasy substance found on the rug that, when tested, turned out to be melted human fat. And you would think that in a case where someone had almost completely been burned to ash, there would be some kind of strong or unusual smell, but there wasn't one. There was also no clear cause for how this fire even started. So investigators went back to square one and they started trying to piece together Mary's life and what exactly happened in those final hours. After her husband passed away, Mary moved to Florida from Pennsylvania so she could be closer to her son and his family. The day before she died, she had actually gone to the beach with them and she seemed to have a good time, but when they got back, her son found her sitting in a chair crying. She had been planning the summer trip back to Pennsylvania, but the plans had fallen through and she was honestly kind of sad about it. Mary ended up going back to her apartment not long after, and later that evening around 8 p.m., her son came by to check in on her.